Hi everyone, I'm Pistolesi. Before starting my presentation, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a designer and since 2015, I've been working as a research fellow at the Ergonomics and Design Lab of University of Florence. Today, I'm going to tell you about our research entitled On Care Design for Parkinson's Disease. Due to nature of the conference, we will tell you how the human-centered design approach enabled us to analyze the needs of a special category of users, namely people with Parkinson and their caregiver. The research project on care design for Parkinson's disease, financed by Fondazione Zoe, aimed at the definition of guidelines for the design and implementation of an inclusive and accessible home environment for people with Parkinson and their caregivers. The research team is composed of various figures from different scientific disciplines, from the design area to the medical and sociological area. Before entering into presentation, I would like to say you that the consultation of these guidelines is addressed to a wider audience consisting of people with Parkinson, caregivers, healthcare staff, and design professionals, such as designers, architects, and engineers as well. Parkinson's disease is one of the most frequent degenerative disease of the central nervous system, along with Alzheimer's disease. The course of Parkinson's disease is progressive and symptoms vary from person to person. Even if the incidence of Parkinson's increases notably with age and people live longer, so the prevalence of Parkinson will increase in the future. According to some scientific studies, the number of people with Parkinson has been steadily increasing from 2.5 million in 1990 to 6.1 million in 2016, while the expected number of cases in 2030 would be between from 8.7 to 9.3 million, and then reaching 12 and 13 million in 2040. The onset of the disease is generally around 60 years of age, although it can also affect 40 to 50 years old. As shown in this slide, this disease is characterized by two disorders: motor symptoms and no-motor symptoms. Motor symptoms are tremor, muscle rigidity, freezing, bradykinesia and akinesia, impairment of speech, facial expressions, body language and writing, postural imbalance or alteration as well. While no-motor symptoms are sleep disorders, impairment of psychocognitive functions, visual and sexual disturbances, depression, anxiety, and fatigability. As you can see from this picture, the built environment has a direct impact on Parkinson's disease. As reported by the World Health Organization, many people suffer from an impairment or health condition that becomes a disability in a specific environment. For example, an able-bodied person spends about 8 to 14 hours a day indoor, while a person with Parkinson may spend up to 24 hours a day indoor. So the quality of life, therefore, very often relates to the quality of living spaces. And it's for this reason that the designer has a duty to provide his knowledge to create accessible, usable, and highly welcoming spaces and environments. To give another example, disability can be experienced by any of us at any time, as in the case if I break my leg and I have to be forced to stay in a wheelchair for weeks. In this case, a room that is too small or kitchen cupboards that are too high create barriers to carrying out common daily activities. Fortunately, we can be found in the scientific literature and in the literature of the sector example of accessible housing developed for people with disabilities. But in my opinion, this is only a starting point. We still have a lot to do, both from a legislative, practical, and a cultural point of view. For these reasons, and for this research project, we used two approaches: the human-centered approach and the inclusive design approach. These two approaches allow us to design for people and with people, and to define guidelines to take into account the variability of human beings, taking into account the ever-changing needs of people with Parkinson and the needs of caregivers. In accordance with the goals of the research project, a human-centered design approach and inclusive design intervention strategy, so the analysis and project development activities were planned to identify the following step: what problem a person with Parkinson and his or her caregiver experience when carrying out common daily activities, understand if their home is suitable for the needs of the person with Parkinson and their caregiver, understand which room or element of the home creates discomfort, what feature the ideal home should have to meet the needs and the requirement caused by Parkinson's disease, what assistive technology and heights are used and which of these are suitable, understand which heights and assistive technology create discomfort. The human-centered design approach emphasizes the observation and consideration of user feedback because it is one of the most important components during the evaluation phase. For this reason, after a careful review of the literature in the field and in consideration of the data we wanted to obtain, we decided to use a range of methods that included observation of the context and active participation of user. Due to the spread of the COVID virus and the restriction imposed by the pandemic, we had to change the methodological approach. As you can imagine, it was not easy to figure out which and how many methods could help us understand how to capture qualitative and reliable data without interacting with the user. Fortunately, digital technologies such as Google Meet, Skype, and Zoom helped us in this regard. Two methods were used. The first method involved the exploratory semi-structured interview, and the second method involved the structured interview. The study was conducted with users from the Tuscany region. The semi-structured exploratory interview was conducted with 25 people with Parkinson's disease and 16 informal caregivers. The aim was to explore Parkinson's disease, home assistive technologies and heights, work and public services as well. The level of symptoms of this user varied from mild to severe. At the end of this phase, it was decided to conduct a further interview with a smaller sample of users. Of the 25 users previously recruited, we chose 18, namely users with a level of symptoms ranging from medium to severe. So during this phase, we asked the user to describe in detail the characteristics of their current home and what the ideal home for a Parkinson patient should look like. Then we asked this user to document the architectural barriers present in their home. Let's see together the most interesting data. With regard to the data that emerged in step 1, as can be seen in this slide, Most of the subjects who took part in the study live between the city and the suburbs, while a small portion of the sample recruited lives in the countryside. While the graph on the right tell us that most of the subjects dwelling are developed in a single floor, on a single floor. Only 3 out of 25 subjects declared that live in a multi-story house. If we refer instead to the family nucleus, most of the subjects involved declared to live in a family nucleus composed by 2 people, while the remaining sample declared to live alone or to live with other 2 people or 3 people. Very interesting is the opinion of the house. In fact, it emerged that 16 out of 25 users are satisfied with the house they live in because it is sufficiently spacious, while the remaining portion attributed a negative value to the house they live in. If we refer to step 2, 7 subjects out of 18 live in a 5-room dwelling, while 4 subjects live in a 4-room dwelling, 6 subjects live in a 4, 6, and 10-room dwelling, and only 1 subject live in an 8-room dwelling. The graph on the right shows that 13 out of 18 subjects want a house with bathrooms of an adequate size to guarantee access and rotation of a wheelchair, as well as the space necessary to install grab bars and a seat for the shower. Next, 10 respondents attach great importance to stair. Because they know that stair, depending on the level of Parkinson disease symptoms, of course, can be an incentive to reduce freezing. They prefer single-story housing solution and therefore without stair to access the internal floor of the house. Moreover, 7 out of 18 subjects declared that they would like greater accessibility to the kitchen environment, also for those who are forced to sit on a wheelchair or use a walker. The main problems are related to the use of wall and base unit in the kitchen, but also to the appliances provided. On the other hand, 5 out of 18 respondents give a lot of importance to outdoor space, such as a terrace or garden, and to usability and accessibility at home for workers and wheelchair. Finally, 4 subjects out of 18 interviewed declared the need for rooms of a suitable size for wheelchair access, open space solution, and space inside the home where physical activity can also be carried out. Finally, this last graph represents the user's needs and wishes in relation to the home where they live. 10 users declare that they would like to modify the bathroom in the future, of course, while 6 subjects out of 18 would like to have suitable tools to overcome 8 differences, such as a platform or lift, while 5 subjects showed the will to have a space where they could do physical activity. To conclude, 2 subjects would like to have handles or grips placed in a strategic point of the house, besides the bathroom. And while one subject stated that he or she needs an outdoor space, rooms and kitchen of a size suitable to accommodate a wheelchair. So in conclusion, we can state that the human-centered design approach can offer an important contribution to the identification and analysis of unspoken needs and expectations in order to create accessible and inclusive environment and usable products. The same approach enabled the research team to produce a comprehensive mapping of the difficulties and the problems currently being experienced by users. This mapping was then useful for the definition of the guidelines. Finally, the results showed that active user participation can be considered as an opportunity for inclusive growth and development in the contemporary society, in consideration to the relationship between the built environment and disability. Similarly, this research project also had limitations. In fact, the sample of users involved cannot be considered nationally representative, but it's a scientifically valid. And to conclude, this research project can be considered in the middle between interior design and product design, specifically addressed to the health and care sector. For this reason, some aspects have been deliberately not dealt with, such as installation, lighting, bureaucratic aspect, in order to focus more focus on the quality of the minimum spaces of the home to be guaranteed to the people with Parkinson and his or her caregiver. So that's it. I hope the presentation was interesting. Thank you for your time and attention. And for any further information, please feel free to send me an email. Have a good Congress.